Welcome back to Thinking It Through. I wanted to begin a series on the rioting and unrest currently gripping the nation and analyze the situation, at least the way that I see it. Let's start with the Black Lives Matter movement and how, like all protests of this type, it evolved from what it was to what it is. Before we begin, please like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified when new videos come out. So let's get into it. The original founding of Black Lives Matter starts as all these types of movements do. People who are genuinely outraged. They're angry and frustrated enough that they are picking up signs and getting out to make their voices heard. These are the honest people, the true believers, the ones who will go out and try to make change legally, but are frustrated with the pace at which it comes. The people who start these movements should not be confused or associated with the groups I am about to describe who come out of the woodwork once a movement begins to get public attention. These are people with their own agenda and quickly try to co-opt and corrupt the movement for their own gain. This brings us to our first group, rioters. Regular people who see the protesters go by and jump in to see what's in it for them. These folks try to get some satisfaction out of the chaos and usually commit opportunistic crimes like theft and arson or find someone to beat on. They don't think they will get caught in the excitement, but if they do, they hide behind the legitimate protesters and act aggrieved and confuse protesting with rioting. Next is Antifa, which stands for anti-fascists. Despite its name, it's just a group of thugs and bullies who, like jackals, are brave in packs, but are timid solo. Their tactic of choice is to label anyone who doesn't agree with their limited worldview as fascist. This allows them, in their own twisted minds, to justify whatever violent action they commit by claiming it's morally right. To show just what sort of people you're dealing with, here's a picture of them going after a young girl and her father, outnumbering them 50-1 and chasing them down the street. The young girl and her father had donned American wear for a rally they attended and were spotted by Antifa, who came under the guise of counter-protesting. An Antifa member is now currently being blamed for the execution of someone wearing a Blue Lives Matter logo in Portland, Oregon. The group was recently and rightfully declared a terrorist organization. Antifa has its own goals, which seem to be just an excuse to cause injury and mayhem under the guise of social justice. Another group that finds its way to movements like this is the paid protester. I've actually met two types. Those who answer an ad in the local newspaper for bodies to hold signs and make a protest seem larger for the cameras. The second type are professional agitators, called on by groups to come in and do the dirty work. It's an old union trick. Bring in people from out of the area to pose as workers on the picket line. Let them assault people and commit the violence, and when management comes down and demands the names of the workers involved, they can't find anyone to fire. It's the same in this situation. When escalation is required to get more media attention, they are hired to come in and do some damage. This has a second effect. Not being local, the Democrats and their media pals can say it's someone from the outside, probably a right-winger or alt-right group, that has come to town to commit violence and make us look guilty. And when the protests gain real public attention, in come the vultures, the parasites, and the bottom feeders. The worst of these bottom feeders is the Democratic Party. They will come in and use the movement to their own ends. Those prosecutors and politicians that were letting rioters go without jail time, that was a deliberate and well-calculated attempt to keep the riots going, giving the Democrat Party time to blame the president for the violence. If you don't think so, remember, Joe Biden's staff, Kamala Harris, and some of their supporters in Hollywood raised money to get rioters out of jail. One person in the former Obama-Biden administration actually posted bail for a woman who was allegedly throwing Molotov cocktails. Now let me go back to the Democrats claiming outside alt-right agitators and groups coming into town. If you're saying that the Democrat Party officials and their allies in Hollywood are paying to bail out alt-right rioters out of jail, that makes no sense. First, if true and proven, it would be a public relations nightmare explaining it to the Democratic base. Second, which Hollywood star wants that kind of bad press? So why continue with this blame connection to Trump, which really can't be seen by most Americans? It's aimed at loyal Democrat Party members, those still angry over their stinging loss in 2016. News like this comes out, feeds into their confirmational bias that the alt-right is under every bed and in every closet, and Trump is the ringleader. It's a way to keep their party base energized to go out and vote, to send money to Democrat candidates, and to help their pals in the media. The media-Democrat Party connection is a line so blurred one doesn't know where one part ends and another begins. Their mission in all this? First, to help the Democrat Party. The second, to get people outraged and continue to increase viewer ratings and push left-wing clickbait. Both have the effect of increasing ad revenue. The job of the media at Black Lives Matter in Minneapolis was to push the narrative that the protests were peaceful. They didn't want to show the negative aspects that were coming out all over the internet, such as rioting and looting. This would turn public opinion against the movement. No movement means no hope for the Democrats in this election season. Some hilarious footage came up of an MSNBC reporter standing in front of a burning building in Minneapolis saying, "This is mostly a protest, generally speaking. It's not unruly," while a building burns behind him and their own chyron at the bottom of the screen says, "Police station and other buildings burning in Minneapolis." It was quite literally the most absurd news reporting I've ever seen, but they sit there with a straight face and toe the talking point line. There is a next group, those who are out filming and recording everything. Some of these are part of the professional protest groups who want to be on hand to record any perceived police misconduct and help the rioters look like victims. Some of these people run websites or are basic content creators, others just ordinary people who want to generate clicks or get attention online. To show what sort of people these are, look to the internet. There are pictures of people being harassed, beaten, and kicked. Instead of helping the victim, these third-rate journalists just sit there and take pictures. I have a great story about these sort of people. In 2016, my son, who was a political junkie in his young teens at the time, called and asked if I would take him to a Donald Trump rally for his birthday. Since there was one happening in a nearby city, we drove up. Mr. Trump informed the crowd that if anyone started protesting or yelling, not to engage them, but to chant USA, USA, and security would come and deal with them. Within 10 minutes, one such person did just that. He started yelling nasty things at Trump, then immediately fell to the floor. Everyone backed away and started chanting USA to alert security. All of a sudden, 4 people working with this agitator started filming him with their cell phones and yelling, "Don't hurt him! Can't you see you're hurting him?" even though there was no one near him. The security showed up and bodily picked up the agitator, all while the 4 cohorts were filming away and yelling things like, "Can't you see you're hurting him? Don't hurt him! Stop!" It was a clear but unsuccessful attempt to stage an incident or make it look like one in progress. We laughed about it all the way home, but things like that, posted online and out of context, are becoming a great part of the propaganda war. This brings us to our final group that shows up in these protests: the poverty pimps, the race hustlers, and the fundraisers. Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson come first to mind. These are people who have made a living sowing division and then walking away with a check. Take a moment to Google some of the destruction they have left in their wake during their careers. They come in, agitate without fact, just for self-enrichment. And of course, the fundraisers. Professional organizations that may or may not have anything to do with the movement come out and spread information on their causes and ask for donations. They are always looking for like-minded people to join their ranks and swell their bank accounts. On the next video, I will explain the usual timeline for these movements and why they finally meet their end. Continue the conversation below. What did I miss? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Before I go, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.